What are the best decks in Master Duel post the new set? I don't even know what it is. Today we will be doing a tier list post Cosby arrivals for Brian, Nightmare arrivals for everybody else, and chat will be joining in and letting us know. If you want to see more videos like this, you already know what to do. Catch us on stream Monday, Tuesday, Thursday at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Every single one of these strategies is going to be based off of strength and where I think they're going to be at. Let's rejoin at the end of the month to see if I were right about these particular strategies and where I got wrong. So I think off the top, Branded is probably never going to die in Master Duel. I think that it's a really strong strategy, right? Even with Branded Fusion at 1, I think smart players have found out that this is still one of the strongest decks in the game. And ironically, while the Chimera support can't mesh with the Branded support like how it is in the TCG because of Branded Fusion at 1, it's still a really good deck, and you can possibly even use the Chimera cards. Dark World. Dark World did get more support. It did in the last pack. Yeah, it's going to be a no for me. We do have a replay that I want to share with you guys that's later on in the video that may even get you guys to think a little bit differently, but the problem with Dark World is that you're not going to be able to consistently win games. It's not that deck, guys. I don't think that it's good enough to be able to continuously compete in the Master Duel ladder. Maybe it's a platinum or something, but past that, like, it's just not worth it. Makono got some new support. I think Makono is going to take a good pilot. That actually might even be low. I think we could always say that Makono is going to be really good. The new support for Makono really does help. I think when we get Kin and Jin, the deck becomes ridiculous, and you're really going to have to watch out for it, possibly even ban ESOL like how it is in the TCG, because in a best of one, this deck takes full advantage of that, unlike in the OCG and TCG. Rockets, the deck's pretty down bad, but it keeps getting better and better, right? There's no new dragon support that I can think of to make this deck good, but I think that it takes a skilled player and the right circumstances for it to be able to thrive. Right now, experimental. The problem with Exo Sister, I think that Exo Sister is perfect game design in a fair Yu-Gi-Oh game. The problem is we are not playing fair. I think that Exo Sister takes a really good pilot Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. Because the deck is so balanced and fair, you're going to have to deal with a lot of unfair situations that may just cost you the game. Like, you summon your Exo Sister board, which isn't like ridiculously powerful. Your opponent gives you a nice shiny rock, and you're like, or dealing with Max C is definitely some of those points where I think that Exo Sister, one of the most fair decks in the game, does take a really good pilot to be able to master. Now, Drytron did get new support. It's still experimental. I think at best, I mean, it probably is closer to crossplay off because the new card really didn't do anything. Like, let's be real, guys. Drytron is down bad. There's way too many cards. Bystials are going to start getting played a little bit more. Maxi, Droll, stuff like that is into the format. I think that this is in the same situation as Dark World, except it is more consistent. The new card does absolutely nothing. I would also say that Fluenderesa's Xbox crossplay off. Thank God that we have not seen this meta, like, ever again. Like, aren't you guys happy that we don't see Fluenderesa anymore? The deck has been destroyed to shambles on the Master Duel ban list. Unfortunately, though, if it were off the ban list, it would still be a contender. I think Labyrinth is one of the top decks in the game right now. The deck's really crazy. It dodges Maxi, it dodges Droll. It gets hit by Ash, but nobody's playing Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. So instead of having 6 ways to deal with most Labyrinth decks, you guys typically only have 3. And then you normally have 3 to 6 other cards that are not as helpful against this deck. It's one of the better decks, especially with the ruling for Master Duel, that you can transaction rollback Eradicator in the graveyard. I think that Marine Says didn't get stronger or weaker from this particular list. It's a good pilot type Yu-Gi-Oh deck. One of the more fair Yu-Gi-Oh decks that unfortunately gets punished by cards like Maxi, Nibiru, and whatnot. Heroes are also takes a really good pilot. I think the thing that you're going to notice about takes a really good pilot is that every single one of these decks are incredibly fair. There's nothing that makes them pop out as a ridiculously powerful deck. And unfortunately, due to circumstance, you're going to have to be a smart player to play around a lot of tough cards. Mathmech is I still think Mathmech's really good. Konami still hasn't addressed the Mathmech problem, which is 5 Mathmech cards and 35 hand traps. And as long as hand traps are good, Mathmech is really solid. Ninjas. All right, I ain't gonna lie. I'm still coping, but I'm gonna put it in experimental. This chat, do you guys think I'm coping here? Can ninjas be experimental? Like we see people cook with ninjas, right? Like I would say it's better than Dark World, Drytron, and Influenderies, but that could be the copium talking. I think ninjas don't necessarily have a spot right now, but can be really good at what they're really good at, which is flipping your opponent's monsters face down, which ironically is good against Snake Eyes and Kashtira. Plunder Patrol, I would also say it's experimental. The best version of Plunder Patrol Labyrinth, which just probably means that Labyrinth needs to be banned as a deck. Unfortunately, this deck is fair, but it's also on the wrong side of fair. Sharks. I think Sharks are another fair Yu-Gi-Oh deck, especially with Gozen Match being limited. The best thing about Sharks is that the Kragan Gozen Match, which obviously that's taken away. The next best thing is its incredible Exceed plays and being able to equip. It's a pretty solid Yu-Gi-Oh deck, but unfortunately falls to a lot of great things going on. Dark Magician apparently gets a boost with Chimera. I'm going to keep it an Xbox crossplay off until I see some convincing evidence that this deck is Big Cook. I don't see the Big Cook just yet. I want you guys to prove me. I would also say that Gold Pride just isn't strong enough. Not only does it take a good pilot, it's behind the 8-ball in support. And Volcanic, I would also say, is experimental. The best version of Volcanic is Volcanic Snake Eyes, which means you've already crafted all of the Snake Eyes cards. So what are you doing? It's not terrible. It does have FTK potential, which is cool, but I don't think it's good enough. Unchained with Pot of Prosperity to 1. We've been climbing the Masters with Unchained, and I think Unchained is on the side of really good. I think eventually this deck will drop down. It takes a really good pilot. But the reason why I say it's really good is because there are so many ways to unpunish yourself when you're going against most players in the game. If you're going against anything from the really good to anything below the really good decks, you can make yourself almost invincible. You can make mistakes and still recover, which is a sign of a very strong Yu-Gi-Oh deck. The problem with Unchained is that when you go against some of the better players in the game, they'll punish you for those mistakes, and that can be costly. I think it's a really good deck. Unfortunately, it does brick from time to time, but it's very good. Altergeist got a ton of new support. And I'm telling you guys, if I had all of the Altergeist cards, I would consider playing it. I think that this deck is a lot stronger than it's ever been. I'm going to put it in takes a good pilot. I genuinely do believe in Altergeist that much. I think that this deck is good enough to be able to compete when you know exactly what you're doing. It's a fun deck. Ironically, it is a trap deck, but it doesn't feel like that trap deck. And it has some really cool plays. Super Heavy Samurai is one of the top decks in the game. I still think I think it's on the lower end of one of the top decks in the game. The ban list to Super Heavy Samurai has been some of the stupidest hits I've ever seen in my life. And that's why this deck still sits at the top of the throne. Regardless, I think that Maxi and Droll have allowed it to curve it a little bit, but still one of the top decks. I would say the very top of really good, but if you put it in top decks, you're not coping. Red Dragon Archfiend, experimental. This deck is solid. It's strong. Actually, I would go as far to say takes a really good pilot. It's solid. It's strong. It can get you all the way to plat. Easy. When you know what you're doing. But it does come to a point where your deck is too fair. Your opponent will be playing some crazy things. Same thing with Vanquish Soul. This deck requires a brain, which not most Yu-Gi-Oh players have. And I think that if you are looking for a way to challenge yourself and become a better duelist, Vanquish Soul might be it. Evil Tao's got some support. I don't want to say that they're Xbox crossplay off. I'll put them in experimental. The problem with Evil Source is that you're probably better off just playing Dino. Unless you're like really committed into playing Evil Tiles, the Dino cards make all of the Evilsaur monsters and easier, ironically. There's some really cool combos with this deck, and there's some like Snake Eyes, Evil Tile combos, but you wind up circling back to Dino, which means you're probably just better off playing Dino. Scareclaw. Now, on surface level, it may seem like Scareclaw did not get any support. Scareclaw got a litany of support. Not only is Scareclaw Kashtira in the game, which is crazy good, but now Visa Samsara is in the game, which gives the deck a reliable one-card summon and allows you to pack your boards with some crazy things. I think if you guys follow my build that I put on my TCG channel, you would be surprised. I actually think it's really good. And hear me out. You don't play any of the bad Scareclaw cards. You drop all of the level 3s. Don't play them. They're bad. They're just bad at the game. Visa Samsara one-card combos you into any Synchro 8, as well as Vicious Astrolabe. It gives the deck going second destruction potential. I think that you may even want to abandon summoning the Scareclaw Tryhard, but really focus on board breakers, hand traps, going second. This version of the deck is crazy good at being able to control. It works well with Kashtira, and it can play a lot of counter cards. I think that it is incredibly good. Go ahead and check out that profile on the TCG if you want to see it. Sprite's definitely down to take a really good pilot. This deck is incredibly balanced right now. Infernable never really took off, which I swear it confuses the living daylights out of me. But it probably is because Super Heavy Samurai is a less forgiving version of Infernable. When you think of Infernable, I know you don't think of the Synchro monster, Infernable Emperor Charles, because it makes Barone, Appaloosa, and the Link monster. This deck makes Barone, Appaloosa. It's literally the same deck with different skins. And because Super Heavy Samurai is easier to play, I'm going to put this in experimental because this deck, Super Heavy Samurai, is easier to play. Sword Soul, balanced. Incredibly balanced. Tearlament, I take back what I said. I think Tearlament is one of the better decks in the game. Still ridiculously good, especially with your Kid Kalos still. Blue Eyes, let's go just Xbox crossplay off. I don't think that will do anything. Purely, I think, is really good with the new monster. The new monster makes Purely completely base, guys. The deck can now play Dimension Shifter. It can play Under Dimension Shifter. It can set up its combos. I don't like that a lot of the Purely spell cards are hit on the ban list, but still really good. I think that Monadium will finally rise to the throne as a top Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, easily. And the reason why is because of Visa Samsara adds that last missing piece and allows the deck to just one-card combo. Similar to what Scareclaw does, but except a little bit more immune to hand interruptions. Dinos, with the new support, I'm going to put them in Takes a Good Pilot. I think that the deck is... It didn't get worse. It definitely got stronger, but it didn't get better, if you know what I'm saying, right? Good little combo board breaker deck. So it'll pretty much clap these two decks up. It'll struggle against Labyrinth and Trap heavy decks. And it depends on the Snake Eyes player. I think Zodiac I think there's just better decks playing. There's decks that give you more advantage. Same thing with Sky Striker. I think that there's better decks that give you more advantage. Unfortunately, I'm going to put Dinomorphia down in experimental this time around. I think that it's just too big of a risk going second into combo decks with Dinomorphia. But if you can consistently go first, you're chilling. Snake Eyes is still probably one of the best decks in Master Duel. Earthbound, cross-play off. I'm going to start off Chimera because it doesn't start with some of the really good cards in experimental. I think it does have potential to be higher than experimental. It could be really good. The problem with Chimera is playing through hand traps. And with Branded Fusion at 1, that normally is your ash bait. You get put in really interesting spots. So I'm going to go ahead and test out Chimera. I think that it's a little bit stronger than experimental, maybe even to really good. But without the Master of Tile and cards like that, I'm going to put it in experimental. Lastly is your Sartic. Don't even try playing that deck. And that's all that I got for the Master Duel tier list post Cosby of Chaos, as Brian would say. I hope you guys have an amazing day. There's a Cosby Nightmares. Be sure to check out these videos so I can catch you on the next one. Oh, Rescue Ace. How could I forget? I would put Rescue Ace at top deck. I think Rescue Ace is one of the best decks available. Let me go ahead and... Rescue Ace is going to be one of the best decks in the game. You guys finally get your consistency pieces that you need. Rescue Ace, Preventer, and Emergency are ridiculously strong cards. You're really going to have to watch out for them, especially with the Snake Eyes cards making it ultra powerful. And that's all that I have for the tier list. Of course, if you want to see more amazing videos, go ahead and check out these videos. So now I can catch you on the next one.